This is the Sports Hit List by the fans for the fans.
Carl Coulange for another edition of the Sports Hit List by the fans and for the fans. I had to bring in the NFL crew real quick to talk some marketing. Part of the game of sports that we love is not just the game itself, but how it's promoted. And Rick, he gets on my nerves. I love him, but he's always coming at the NBA left or right. But this one actually made sense, and I couldn't even defend it. And I tried an uphill battle, and I couldn't. I said, you know what? Let's just talk about this. Joining me, Trav and Paul. But the NBA promotion for the NBA Finals is not what it used to be. We remember a time where we saw the decals with the actual year on the floor. They had the national anthem. They had the you talk about guys coming out with the presentation of what the NBA Finals were, player introductions. It made you feel special. Even the patches on the jersey, the patches on the warm-ups. We didn't see much of that. We haven't seen much of that through the recent years. Now, the NBA's excuse behind it is that the players kind of didn't want more decals on the floor because they didn't want slippage. That was the reasoning. But then it's kind of counterintuitive when you look at the play-in tournament and they get special courts, right? So it doesn't make any sense. Rick, I'm gonna start with you because you kind of found it and you kind of made this interesting topic. And I have some things that I definitely want to address as we go along. So, what are your thoughts as far as what you've seen, and I guess what can be done to fix it?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that reel, it popped up, and immediately, because I found myself watching game one, and I, while I was watching, in the back of my mind, it was one of those subconscious things where I was like, something's missing. You know what I mean? Like I found myself watching the game, and I was just like, I don't know, something ain't right. So it wasn't until the following day when I saw that reel pop up, and it really kind of got me thinking, like, man, that's right. Like the presentation of what is supposed to be the most important 4 to 7 games of the season didn't feel like that whatsoever. You know what I mean? So before we even get started on this conversation, I want to be able to say to you first and foremost, thank you for having the conversation. And I hope that you're able to have the conversation without bias. I know you love the NBA.
Yeah, I am.
And, and
You
here's
know,
the
I can
thing.
be biased. I
Carl,
can be not biased.
Carl without bias on the
Listen,
I
here's the
can't.
thing. I know a lot of time, we get into that friendly banner about NBA, NFL, whatnot. And I know the NBA guys always are ready to defend the NBA, and a lot of times we troll it, right? But I want you and all the rest of the NBA guys to know that are going to watch this. This isn't a troll. You know what I mean?
We understand.
This has nothing to do with bad basketball, not wanting to watch basketball, small markets. Like it has nothing to do with anything of the sort. This is strictly about how you are presenting the 4 to 7 most important games of your season. And over the past handful of years, we've seen where that presentation has dropped off a little bit more and more each year to the point where this year, again, you had a lot of people watching game one and couldn't really decipher whether they were watching one of the biggest games of the year or a random Tuesday night game in November. You know what I mean? And that's a problem for a league, especially for a league that has a reputation of being one of, if not the best at marketing themselves. You know what I mean? For the longest time, the NBA has been one of those leagues that when it came from a marketing standpoint, they got it. They understood it. You know what I'm saying? They were able to do it nonstop. And now you've gotten to a point where, what I'm saying, the pinnacle of this season, the top prize of this season, the biggest and most important time of this season is not really represented and backed by the effort when it comes to a presentation standpoint. And something's got to give. You mentioned, hey, they were listening to the banter and whatnot online. They made a change yesterday, and they added some of those superimposed logos and whatnot digitally. It looked crazy. It looked absolutely terrible. Because to your point, I turned on the game, a little bit midway through the first or second, whatever it was, and I saw those trophies on there. First of all, in my mind, I was like, those weren't there the other day. And number two, I'm looking, I'm like, this looks worse than 2K. Like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like we got video game companies that could make that look better. And this is 2025 real life NBA I'm watching, and they've got this fugazi ass trophy on the court, and then out of nowhere, randomly, it switches to the NBA. It's like it's a mess. Something needs to be done. I know you said what can be done. We'll kind of outline that as we go along, because there's a lot of things, a lot of different ideas out there. But I'll let the other good brothers get their thoughts in here on the intro.
Just for context, I did bring it up last night on the live, and everyone's in agreement. Ray Jar was on, Mike. We all think it's terrible, to the point where Ray Jar was actually, he threw in the race card. He was like, I hate to be the guy, but everybody else gets the spectacle in MLB and NFL. Why is it us that we get the shit show? Like, what's going on with us that we can't put on a good product and promote it like it is? Paul, what do you think here?
Before I answer that question, let me throw a question out there, a subliminal question out there for my viewers, for you guys. You want to know what all these things I'm going to say have in common? Brandon, turn it down. Brandon is important, right? The NBA used to be a big time brand. Like when I see the NFL Shield, that's a brand, right? Forget the sport, it's a brand.
Yeah.
So as you think about Nike, Starbucks, Apple, Target, let me look around here. I mean, Walmart, their brand and their brand identity has never changed. They might add a color, they might make it 3D holographic, they might even give you a person doing something different on a logo, but the brand has never changed. So somewhere along the way, I mean, I know we think it was 2014 with the LeBron and CP3 reign of player safety. Branding is poor in the NBA. And what yesterday showed is a dangerous case of being too responsive to partial media, because the world went crazy about the court not looking as nostalgic. And what did they do? They made it worse, right? It's like they poured lighter fluid on a flame that was already too high on the grill, right? But to answer your question, I'm not gonna go with the race thing, right? Like I don't think this is a racial thing at all, right? I think there's a leadership issue in the NBA, and as much as I like Adam Silver, it's been a leadership issue since he's taken over, right? What you see is just the end result of over a decade long of poor decision making. And my name today is Neutral Site for a reason. So you mentioned you started this call with the play-in tournament. Well, the play-in tournament's plan. So they can plan to have a colored court and a specific trophy logo, depending on whichever cup it is. They can plan that in advance, right? Sort of like we see the World Cup planned and the Super Bowl planned. And
it's terrible as those courts are.
And the U.S. Open, right? Those things are planned. As bad as those fields, to Travis's point, doesn't matter. Whether they're playing outdoors in Tampa on natural grass and they can paint trophies all over the field, or they're playing indoors at a Vegas where it's actually a perfect surface, it doesn't matter. But they're planned so they can execute. The NBA has failed to execute. And then they give us all these days off, right? The fact that they had 2 days off between 2 days off between game 1 and game 2, and they came back with a product that was 5 times worse in the viewer's eyes. With an organization driving this amount of revenue, that amount of profits, with this many eyes expected to view, is pure poor leadership. There's no other way you can look at it. If my kids wake up in the morning and I don't have nothing to eat, that's on me. Right? If there's no waffles and strawberries in it, that's on me, bro. I can't blame you for not.
So what you're saying is that I guess the NBA players don't have waffles and strawberries.
They don't have waffles and strawberries.
But the viewers don't have waffles.
And the only person you can blame is Adam Silver. This comes to the head. I can appreciate him getting on the mic and talking about maybe another team and expansion and value in small markets. And this is why I don't know if you've caught on to the song and dance. Adam Silver's entire media campaign pre-finals was to highlight the fact that the collective bargaining agreement with salary caps is the reason for small markets being in there, and they welcome that. That was his whole campaign. We love the small market, right? They had the perfect. You know what Oklahoma City could have done to host games 1 and game 2 of the finals? Like, I'm talking parades. Like, you're talking about a place that is a small market. They would have dominated a small market. And Rick would agree with this next comment. I watched the Super Bowl get played in places like Tampa, Jacksonville. Those are terribly small markets. Like, people don't realize how small Tampa of a market is. Like, there's one strip that connects the Buccaneers, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Yankees minor league team, and then the highway back to Orlando. Like, that's Tampa. and they can execute at the highest of levels and create an amazing experience with somebody like Tom Brady in town to beat the Chiefs. But here we are today trying to figure out what they're going to do in Indiana on Wednesday with another 2 days off and having an entire 10 days to prepare for a finals game. And let's see what happens.
Poor Trav, before I get to you, I'm already thinking my marketing hat on. I would reach out as far as for your local celebrities that are from Indiana. Mike Epps is from Indiana. You could use the Jackson Five.
He'll be out there.
Yeah,
he was at the game
the
one.
The Jacksons are from Indiana. I'm thinking cross collaboration is a key way to do it. But
like we can't get a live performance for the finals, bro. Like
you could. Trav, what are your thoughts here?
Man, first of all, let's just sit here and say we are rebranding ourselves as the Sports Hit List Consulting Group. Okay, NBA, I expect a check. All right, for these ideas we about to give y'all. 2, I just want to touch on some of the points that the fellas dropped on us. Brandon, yes, put on American Gangster. Brandon, you stand behind it. You know what I mean? Like you had a point where it's like, and this it may have came to this from a result of the years where the NFL, like Paul said, the Shield, Roger Goodell will get up there and tell you every day there is nothing bigger than the Shield. You know what I mean? Whereas the NBA, they market their players. So what do you have when you have a situation where there's the finals where there's no LeBron, there's no Steph, there's no KD? You know what I mean? There's players that you are not necessarily familiar with. You even got the MVP and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Like, not too many people are. If you're not the casual basketball fan, isn't that familiar with them. So yes, and I agree with the fact that a neutral site would be highly beneficial because you think about it. You got one, like you said, they got a chance to do something with them courts. Even the playing tournaments, I hate how them courts look. But every time I turn on a playing game, I know it's a playing game because they got them ugly ass courts on there, right? So you're able to do that. If you're able to do a neutral site, you have a week and a half. What the finals is usually 4 games, so a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, right? Somewhere along those lines. Yep. You are able to bring in a whole bunch of people, like look what All-Star Weekend does. You're able to put those events together just for the weekend. Now you have, I think Paul threw it out in the chat. What if they do something like Vegas? You know what you could do with game 1 on a Thursday and game 2 on a Sunday? And now you got game 3 coming up later in this week. You got one batch of people coming in for game 1 and 2. Now you got a whole new batch of people rolling through town for game 3 and 4, somewhere along those lines. Carl, correct me if I'm wrong. Does the NBA do a media day for the finals?
They do. They have media days. Like
I ain't heard it. I ain't see it.
If you watch NBA TV, it's there. It's there. You really got this year. I didn't see it around, but
you know what? NFL Super Bowl media day is a thing. They moved media day to the prime time. It's an 8:00 event now. So why are we not doing something somewhere along those lines? All right, I understand if you don't want to do a neutral site, but then you could do a media day. How many days was off between the finals and the conference finals?
1 week.
You could have did a media day in each city if you wanted to do it that way. And now, to be honest, even with a neutral site, I don't even know if I like the idea of completely taking it out of the individual cities. So what do y'all think about this idea? What if game 1 and 2 was on a neutral site, and then we move, game 3 through potentially 7 back to the home court, so the home crowd could get a little bit,
that was the argument. So what I did was I sent out a text message after we had our discussion. I was like, let me text the Hit List Streets and internally and figure out what people think. Everyone agreed about the marketing. The neutral site was the one people disagreed with the most. They said Walmart was saying how it's not fair to that city who, they never make the finals and all of a sudden it's in a neutral. They have to pay an extra amount of money to travel just to get there. I don't think the NBA fans would.
Yeah, but my pushback to that is those fans can't afford to go to the finals in their own city anyway. Right. So the average ticket price for the Indiana
Oklahoma City, I actually looked it up. Sorry to cut you off, Paul. It was up $530 was the lowest ticket price.
And you know what the regular season ticket prices are? $43. Right. So you've got to ask yourself, how can you afford to pay that locally? You can't. So the people who end up going to those games are the people who are not even the fans. Right. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's the reality. But it also got to go a step further. They don't have this problem in soccer.
Thanks for watching the Sports Hit List. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. In fact, do it now.